It's not a nice thing to do to disturb the wonderful song of Neil Diamond. What a beautiful noise. But we want to start. So, goeiemiddag collega's, baie welkom. Mweni Wamkele Kile. Welcome to this staff assembly, and thank you for so many staff members from the Stellenbosch campus who join, but also welcome to staff from satellite campuses who are attending through streaming. We have, as you see, an exciting program. Prof. Wim will give a presentation on the mark SU is making internationally. We'll hear from colleague Memoriam on the performance advancement framework that will kick in the new year. And colleague Leslie van Rooy will speak about the transformation policy and specifically also about the plan that will be drafted on basis of the policy as well as on the transformation KPIs. After those presentations, Prof. Wim will lead the session of questions and answers. There's one question that we received beforehand to which he will speak, and you will also have time for questions in the meeting, and of course the colleagues online can put questions to ecoms@sun.ac.za, and that questions will also be dealt with. And colleagues, as in the past, if there are too many questions to address during the meeting, we will afterwards send responses to our staff. Let us, colleagues, take a moment to think of everyone who has passed away since our last meeting. Colleagues, students, alumni, other members of the extended Stellenbosch University family. Let us think of those in our own families and circles of friends who passed on, and as we think of them, we can say, may they rest in peace, and may their dear ones find the strength to carry on. Let us pause for a moment. Thank you, colleagues. Prof. Wim, we give the floor to you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Pleasure. Wow, we've got quite an audience here this afternoon. So, on the way over here, I thought, what a beautiful day. There's a glimpse of spring air, and coming in here, I'm immediately transported back in the midst of winter. Nevertheless, it's wonderful to be here. And over the next few minutes, I want to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing in making our mark internationally. And what is a better way of starting off a staff assembly with a theme, making our mark internationally, than celebrating and acknowledging the global achievement of one of our own. The 2024 Templeton Prize has been awarded to Professor Pumla Gabora-Madikizela. The Saatchi Chair for Violent Histories and Historical Trauma, and also the founding director of the Center for the Study of the Afterlife of Violence and the Reparative Quest, or AFRIC, for her exemplary contributions to scholarship and advancing knowledge in the field of forgiveness and processes of repair in the aftermath of trauma or violence. This, folks, is the equivalent of a Nobel Prize. Come on, let's get... She will be honored by the Templeton Foundation on 2 occasions, one in New York and the other in Cape Town at the beginning of October. And yes, we are indeed planning a special Stellenbosch University event to honor this remarkable woman's achievement. So watch this space. In addition, Prof. Pumla has, of this prize, she's pledged to donate a total of 8 million rand to Stellenbosch University, which will be allocated as follows: 5 million rand towards an endowment scholarship in the name of her parents, Nobantu and Tukela Gobodo; 1 million rand to the Sunrise Stellenbosch University Research and Innovation Strategic Excellence Program, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later on, to support future professors, and 2 million rand to AVREC. And she said that her hope is that the donation to AVREC will attract additional co-funding to help postdoctoral fellows to advance to leadership in the knowledge economy and to support postgraduate students so that they do not have to take on additional work and can thus graduate within the funding period of their scholarships. So, colleagues, let's make some more noise for Prof. Pumla. So now let's turn to some more sobering matters. We find ourselves at a very interesting point in our institution's planning cycle, and I think we can safely refer to it as a juncture of triple thresholds that are essential for our continued success as a research-intensive university. So firstly, we now have a new Minister and Deputy Minister for Higher Education and in the government of national unity, and we're all hopeful for a better future dispensation for our sector. And secondly, we're reaching the closing phase of our strategic plan 2019 to 2024, and we need to think about what's the next phase of our operational plan to put us on a higher trajectory to deliver on our very aspirational but reachable vision statement. And thirdly, given ongoing financial strains and challenges that we have encountered over the last few years, we need to be very mindful and to ensure the financial sustainability of our institution to move into a higher gear. So higher education in South Africa faces a number of significant challenges, and principal among these are, the list here, declining state subsidies, which put our institutions at significant risk. Secondly, the mismanagement of NSFAS, as well as the caps on student accommodation and tuition fees, and this has serious ramifications for the stability of our sector, growing student debt, diminishing prospects of providing equitable study opportunities for all qualifying students. And thirdly, the neglect and insufficiency of funding for postgraduate studies. So as I say there at the bottom, our University of South Africa, which is the group that represents all 26 public universities, shared some guiding thoughts for the new government, for the government of national unity and our new minister and deputy minister, to focus on from the outset, focusing on adequate funding to support sustainability of the higher education sector, a well-functioning NSFAS, as well as to pay serious attention to postgraduate and research and innovation funding. So how all of this will play out over the coming months is uncertain. It's anybody's guess. But for now, our reality remains that we have a reality that we have to do a lot and probably more with less when it's coming to resources. Indeed sobering. But notwithstanding these challenges, and in keeping with the theme of making our mark internationally, Stellenbosch University set ourselves a very deliberate objective in our framework 2019 to 2024, and I want to focus on a few key facets of our academic project. And the first of these is that we show clear evidence of having strengthened our international standing in research excellence, and that's firstly specifically with regard to the Africa-Europe clusters of excellence. So, and it really speaks to our reputation of the work also that you do and that you've contributed to. The reputation as a leading research-intensive university, and we were awarded co-leads of 4 of the 20 joint Africa-Europe clusters of excellence that were created by the African Research Universities Alliance, ARUA, and the Guild of European Research Intensive Universities, or known as the Guild. These 4 clusters that we are leading are firstly addressing global and African challenges through methods from artificial intelligence, data science, and theoretical and computational thinking. Secondly, genomics for health in Africa. Thirdly, nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation and mitigation. And fourthly, renewable energy. And we have significant indication that there will be considerable support for these initiatives through a MasterCard Foundation support for new PhDs that will support up to 1,000 PhDs per year for the next 10 years. So that sounds very, very promising. Another milestone in our internationalization agenda is supporting our growing strategic partnership with Groningen University. And I've listed some of the core collaborative elements of this collaboration. It's joint PhD programs, joint postdoctoral fellows, undergraduate student mobility, enhancing external funding opportunities, and also sharing best practices in educational innovation and partnership viability. And it also speaks not only to our students, undergraduate, postgraduate, our academics, but certainly also our professional and academic support staff. A further example was in in May this year, when we expanded our partnership network by further engaging with the South African Sweden University Forum, or SASIF. And this initiative actually brings together 40 universities from Sweden and South Africa, providing opportunity for researchers, teachers, students, university leadership, support, administrative and support personnel to really develop joint solutions for their climate change and sustainability, education for a sustainable society, looking at the burden of disease in Sweden and South Africa, and sustainable urbanization, and also cybersecurity and the innovative use of digital technologies and big data. So the work that our School for Climate Studies and our School for Data Science and Computational Thinking are doing in this regard, as well as the extensive research programs on medicine and health, that's really put us in a position where we can deliver research that has a significant impact both locally and abroad. And it speaks to my mantra where I always say the work that we do at Stellenbosch is not what we're good at, it's what we're good for, and it's in service of society. The work that we do has local relevance, regional impact, but we're globally competitive. So I think this speaks to our solid research foundation, and what you can see there in those first 5 bullet points are that we are certainly a top South African research-intensive university, both per capita and in terms of total research output. 1,450 contracts in 2023, 3,055, the highest number of articles yet submitted to DHET last year, so 3,055. And we now have 509 NRF-rated research. And in terms of A-rated researchers, we now boast a total of 21, our highest number yet. And on the 1st of September, we will be joined by another A-rated researcher that's joining us from another institution. So we'll be at 22. And we also have 48 fully funded research chairs, which is the most recent addition is the Gijs Steyn Chair in Financial Regulation in the Faculty of Law, and another 22 partially funded research chairs. So this in total doubles the number from 2015. We also established 2 research chairs sponsored by UNESCO in intercultural competence and complex systems and transformative African futures in 2023. And we now have more than 340 postdoctoral research fellows as of the end of last year, and we want to aim this number significantly by March 2025. So now back to a little bit of the Sunrise program, which Professor Pumla is also supporting. And this is an initiative of Professor Siba Moyos. We're building research capacity and expertise at a significant rate to support these research endeavors. And this is now an example of growing our own timber, our own future professors project, Sunrise. It's a great name. I'm not going to remind you of Sun Fin, Sun Student, other than. So, the purpose of this program is to establish a vibrant pool of high-performing peers and a rejuvenated, inclusive, supportive academic community, excellent scholarly contribution, collaboration. The first cohort this year started with 35 mid-career academics from across the university. These are our future professors. Targeted at those with demonstrated intellectual and research excellence, and it's modeled after the very successful National Future Professors Program, but we're investing in our own workforce here. And over 3 years, up to 120 fellows will be enrolled, and so we will take in 40 new fellows annually. So that's the Sunrise program. So what about the infrastructure to support all of these endeavors? So we certainly have invested significantly into infrastructure, gearing us for the future. Almost, we've achieved that by, we've already invested 3.2 billion rand in the development of our future campus. And there's some of the examples that projects that have already or are being developed. It's the engineering faculty, faculty of medicine and health sciences with the BMRI. The planning phase of the next 2 major projects is admin, ABC, and the central campus, the School of Data Science headquarters, and also the refurbishment project for NIFX. And then it is also in the offering is the relocation of several of the Faculty of Agri-Sciences departments to a new consolidated agricultural sciences precinct at the Welgevallen Experimental Farm. And there's a great deal of excitement with regard to this project as well. So we're investing in infrastructure that's geared for the future, because that will enable us and has enabled us to really deliver more top caliber graduates. So just to give you a little bit update here, in March 2024 we conferred 3,066 qualifications. So the total for the 2023 academic year is just a little bit less than 9,875. So actually, roughly a rough calculation, in my tenure of 10 years, Stellenbosch University would have contributed slightly fewer than 90,000 graduates to the South African economy, and I think we should all be very proud of that. So 319 doctoral degrees were awarded, and this is the highest since 2020. So we're back to sort of pre-COVID levels, so 319. And increasingly, this is also, it pays dividends, and Stellenbosch University is a destination of choice also for undergraduates and postgraduates, and you can see that in these figures here, undergraduate applications or applicants by report month and the application here. In the gray there in the middle, July, for the July month, you see almost 90,000 applications, so that's very similar to what we had last year. And that's also reflected in the postgraduate applications. Now, of course, that continues to rise until the end of October or so, but in July, you see we have 9,797, which is all for contributing significantly to, it was a tough time at the beginning of the year, also with regard to accommodation and other issues. But I want to thank you for your contribution. I think it's gone very well thus far. So what has this resulted, these enrollment figures, over a 10-year period? You can see there at the bottom left in 2015, when I started, we were a little bit more than 30,000, and we're now, to my surprise, actually in 2024, we're at 35,000 for both undergraduate, postgraduate, for our entire cohort. So a very significant pillar of what I've tried to do over the last number of years is fundraising. And I've focused on this increasing the fourth stream income of our university in a very purposeful manner. And this is really with the help, support, guidance of our fundraising team at Development and Alumni Relations. And we've actually been quite successful, and that we're closing in on 3 billion rand in philanthropic funds raised over the last 10 years. I was very arrogant when I presented to council in December 2014, when I was appointed, that I will set as a goal that we'll raise 1 billion rand. And there was some smirks in the audience. But anyway, but we're almost 3 billion rand. So where did this come from? So I'm especially pleased with this, and that is that the inroads we've made in mobilizing funds from international sources. So 10 years ago, we received 7% of our philanthropic funding from abroad, and this has grown to a significant 24% now, and it's still growing. And what does it speak to? It speaks to the increasing international relevance of our university, and also definitely the acknowledgement of our academic and research excellence in a global context. And this is due to you all in the work that you do. So this is where we are for this year. So in the first semester 2023, we raised about 224 million, and in the first semester of 2024, about 250 million. So a significant increase there as well. What is this being used for? Where does it go to? So almost 40% of this goes to student support, and that is bursaries in undergraduate, postgraduate studies, along with student wraparound support services. It goes for Move for Food, Bridge the Gap, and some of these very important initiatives. And then you see there at the bottom those two parts of the pie chart, the 12 and 21%, that's for research areas, research chairs, and also other educational programs. Yeah, you may have read in the news that we got a very generous donation in a bequest to 50 million rand, and actually a little bit north of that, as the accountants do their final summation, in a donor's last will and testament, and that is a bequest to fund bursaries and support both under and postgraduate, as well as research in music and theology. So this is some very, very good news. What about challenges? What about challenges? There I come with Sun student, Sun Finn. So despite ongoing challenges as we roll out Sun student, now I'm speaking on The registrar tells me this, but she's not going to hear an opportunity to speak today. She did a fantastic job the last time. So the marks capturing capability was implemented successfully and timelessly for the mid-year examinations and assessments. And you all were involved with this. Thank you so much. I know it took a lot of hard work. Data remediation also made good progress, although small student account discrepancies were still being picked up. So now, and actually I got an email today that the templates, the transcripts is successful, so this can now be delivered by the students to the donors and the bodies that support them, so that's successful. So now the focus has shifted to graduation. Graduation at the end of the year, progression, readmission, and evaluation. Okay, that's Sun Student. Sun Fin. I am told that 90% of the Sun Fin service requests on Giro have been resolved, and the focus is now on projects and grants modules. Third stream contracts are being successfully managed on the comprehensive operational report facility, and that was drawn up with the assistance of the Sun Fin Senate work group, and a similar reporting function is being developed for all new contracts and grants. Volgenhof. Following the Rector's unanimous recommendation to Council to consider the closure of Volgenhof residence in its current format, based on the findings and recommendations of the Volgenhof panel, Council concluded in June that my recommendation warranted further consultation and consideration, and to this end, Council invited all interested and affected persons and stakeholders, as per the administrative justice procedure, to submit written representations until 31st of July, and Council will consider these at its forthcoming meeting in September the 16th. And then lastly, CIRCOR, the committee in response to the recommendations of the Campepe Commission, has made a host of concrete recommendations that are currently under consideration for implementation as a means of supporting our institutional transformational endeavors. Our transformation is incomplete, it's imperfect, but we're resolutely committed. So, colleagues, in conclusion, so in my assessment, the university is a solid, thriving concern. It's well on its way to vision attainment, notwithstanding the significant challenges that we face on a sectoral and institutional level. I really appreciate and would appreciate your joint wisdom in helping us to achieve and to sharpen our efforts in this regard. I want to thank you for your sustained commitment to making Stellenbosch a leading center of knowledge in our country, a reliable research partner on the African continent. I want to thank you for that. I did, in my second slide or so, I highlighted 3 essential thresholds in my overview, but there's a fourth one that I've not mentioned, and that is the handing over of the reins to a new leader to take our university to new heights. So I'll be vacating the position of rector at the end of March 2025. The processes are well underway to appoint my successor, and all things going well, Council will make that announcement in the first week of September. So I am an ardent Robert Browning fan, the poet, that one's reach should always exceed your grasp. But in that light, I did attempt a Vim for Life campaign, but I have to confess that was unsuccessful, and like President Biden, I had to abandon. But I really want to thank you for your support and your commitment to SU's overall success. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, colleagues. It really is such an honor and a privilege to have an opportunity to speak to you about something that matters to us all. And I was looking at the rector and I was wondering, am I tall enough to stand here? Or will I be too short for this mic? Because from down there it looks like it's very high. So I'm glad I can see everybody, because before I start with my presentation, I actually just want to ask you a question. And I don't want you to feel bad if you don't know the answer to this, but I'd like you to put up your hand if you know what our 6 strategic themes are of the university. Don't be bad if you don't know. Can you raise your hand if you know what those are? No cheating. Okay. Colleagues, that's very interesting and very illuminating. And then the second question I want to ask you is, in terms of when you set your key performance areas for the year and your objectives, how many of you, raise your hand if it applies to you, how many of you set your KPIs in a way that it links directly to the university's strategic management themes? Can you raise your hand, please? Okay. That is also very interesting and very illuminating. So with that, I'd like to start. Okay. So colleagues, I'm going to be talking to you about the performance advancement framework, and I've got 10 minutes. I don't want to steal Leslie's time, so it's going to be fairly high level. And I'm sure I'm going to go through it probably quickly or too quickly, but at the end, I think there is a Q&A session, so very welcome to ask the questions then. So these are our strategic management themes, and I thought it's really an important place to start. And then to say to you that that is a model, you can't see the detail, but it's a model that's in our current performance management policy. And what it actually tries to do at the top, it talks about what the university's mission and goals are, its vision. And the next level is how we roll that down to our faculties and our past departments. And then right down to the level of the individual, you and I. So what it calls for really is an alignment between the roles that we've been hired to do and how do we contribute to what the institution sets itself to achieve. But of course, a very important point I want to make is that we're not a corporate. So we're not looking for a kind of linear alignment. We're a complex organization. There are very many nuances that have to come into play. And so what we're looking for is broad alignment at the end of the day. But just from the show of hands in this room, it says to me that we've got a big job to do to ensure that alignment. And so I wanted to show you, to just give you very briefly, because I don't want to make assumptions that we all know this. I want to give you just some background to how did we get to the Performance Advancement Framework project. So the first thing is that there was an external review done by Korn Ferry in 2022, and it made recommendations in terms of performance management at the time. And the key recommendations were to strengthen our alignment and our rewarding of top performers. And the alignment point was actually very well evidenced earlier in terms of those questions. The second one is, and colleagues, you must forgive me, I didn't realize I won't be able to see this big enough, so I would have printed out, just like the rector had, a hard copy if I had known. So just bear with me a bit in case I need to focus well on my slides. The next thing is that we really tried to take the recommendations and to put some of the building blocks in place in the institution to say, let's see how we can work with this. So I think we did our best, but at the same time, we have to be realistic that we did not have sufficient capability and resource internally to do that. So right now, we have parts of those building blocks in place. So what did we do to kind of give this project a bit of a kickstart? Towards the end of last year, we appointed an external part-time resource, a one-day-a-week resource at most, to help us with this work. And what we're wanting to do is to put together a fit-for-purpose performance advancement framework for the university. So I want to share with you some of the as-is challenges that we have. And these are only some of the key ones, because I think we need to appreciate where we're coming from in terms of what's our baseline right now and what is the work we need to do to get to where we want to be. So the first thing is that our strategic management themes, again, as evidenced earlier, are not linked to the KPAs, okay? So that it's difficult for each staff member to right now link what I do as a staff member to how I contribute to the university as a whole. We have a performance management policy and strategy that is outdated. What we have in terms of the work we've done, we've looked at that policy and we need to change it somewhat. And it dates back to 2018. But in fact, the policy itself, in most terms of most of the content, is much older. We have a process with timelines. I think we've done really well with the resources we have. We've got a process. And each year, there's a great effort across the university to actually have review discussions and to put those into a format that would allow for rating, some calibration, and there are timelines in place. But what we don't have are standard templates and standard processes at an institutional level. And here I want to actually appreciate what different environments have done. I know that in some of the faculties and past environments, they have tried to develop kind of standard templates for their own use. But what we really need is an institution-wide standard approach to it. And by standard, please, I do not mean that it's a one-size-fits-all, because again, we're not a corporate. Okay? There's no link currently in terms of our performance management and advancement process to the wonderful courses we offer. And I know that you can probably relate to the fact that there are so many courses, wonderful offerings, but we haven't cracked it back to what are the competencies required for my role, where do I need to grow, and which courses do I need to do. So people go on so many courses. They apply for jobs, and then they say, I feel quite deflated because I'm just not successful and I've done all of these qualifications or courses. So we need to link it, right? And then, colleagues, we don't have, although we have some mechanisms in place to recognize top performers, it is not linked to this performance advancement framework. So we do need a mechanism which links to all of our objectives for the year and how we deliver to be able to recognize our top performers. And then we don't have, again, I know at some unit levels they do this, but institutionally we do not have a system to calibrate those ratings at the end of the day. And it's going to be really critical to put that in place if we're going to recognize top performers, because the process must be fair and transparent. So that's another critical building block. And then, of course, I think all of you know we have not automated these processes. So where are records for these processes? It's sitting in emails, in hard copy documents, and so forth. Okay. So what is the work we completed and the work that's in process? So we got the task team together, because there was a task team that was established, I think, post the Corn Ferry process. And we established the principles and outcomes. And secondly, in terms of linking to our strategic management themes, I'm sure you've all seen the institutional report and what our strategic management indicators are. Those are reflected from an institutional perspective. We don't have baskets that say, how does that impact? What are the indicators at an individual level? And in that regard, we've begun engaging with our strategic centers of excellence. So when Leslie comes to speak to you, that's, for instance, what we see as a center of excellence. We need to be able to unpack what does a KPA for transformation look like. We've done a first stage policy revision, but there's more work that needs to be done. We've designed a standard template, but we really don't want to, and it's in the slide pack, but we don't want to focus on a paper process. We want to see how can we automate it. We want to take the pain out of the process so that people can start focusing on the conversation when they're doing performance advancement discussions. We've defined, so just imagine how many jobs, unique jobs we have across the institution, right? We're a huge organization. So what we've done is we've clustered the jobs into 12 categories or job clusters, so that we can start to say, so what are the key performance areas broadly for each of these job clusters, and what would those objectives look like? Okay, so that's work that we've done. And then, colleagues, very interestingly, we've done some benchmarking with other organizations, and I want to lift out UJ in particular. And they've told us that it took 4 years for them to build their system. And they're actually continuing to build it. But we don't have 4 years. And that has a bearing. If we want to go live Jan to March next year with a new performance advancement framework, we're going to have to start somewhere. And so my point is, we don't have 4 years to complete the perfect system and then go live with it. And then the role of technology. We've really decided that to take the pain out of it, we actually have to see how we can automate this. So what are the key desired outcomes? Firstly, it's alignment with strategic priorities of our organization. We want to enhance the development focus. We want to incorporate the transformation indicators, and Council has been very clear with us that it should be 20 to 25% weighting, and Leslie will speak to us about that. Very importantly, colleagues, we want to incorporate the EK values as part of the performance discussion, and then include a process for recognition and reward of top performers. We want to standardize our approaches, and I've put template in inverted commas for that reason. It's really about standardizing the approach. And then we want to reduce admin burden, focus on the engagement, and automate the process. So our overall approach, Leslie, I hope I'm still okay in terms of time. I'll go a bit faster. The first thing is, I said earlier, we're not a corporate. I think we must just realize that. It's not going to be a linear process. Resourcing is another important one. Our approach is very, very cognizant of the financial constraints we have as a university. So it's about how do we use what we currently have in place. We want to enhance the focus on the conversation, as I said earlier. And so there, for instance, we want to make it easier. So perhaps we don't start off with a mid-year and a year-end review. Perhaps we start off the process with a once a year, and then as the system beds down over time, we start to refine and build. And colleagues, here's the principle of co-creation. It's really, really critical. We're not going to give you a vanilla system and expect it needs to be the same for everybody. We're going to start somewhere, and then we're going to build it. So there we go. Adopt an organic phased approach rather than a big bang. We're not buying a system off the shelf. So what we want to do is build our business process and then see how can we use Oracle Very importantly, people know how to use Oracle. So they don't need to learn completely brand new skills. So that's the kind of approach we're taking. We want to be very mindful of all the system pressures that we've gone through over the last year or two, and we don't want to add to that. We really, really want to bring this in as gently and as meaningfully as possible. And that last icon with the two people dancing there, I chose that deliberately because we want to make it easier for people to do and not more painful. So the work that has to be completed, we've got to build libraries for our strategic management indicators and allow for an iterative process. So we'll come up with something, the basket for transformation KPIs, but we're going to expect people to build on it over time so we can refine it. Building the business architecture, the process flows, and the data sets required. We've got a very small dedicated project team that essentially started this week. We were working on a volunteer basis before this. And I don't know if the specific clients are in this room, but we're going to be lifting out 2 HR practitioners, and we really hope that our clients are going to accommodate and understand that. We will ensure business continuity, but this is a really critical institutional project, and it's time for a dedicated project team. We're going to focus in the first instance on the contracting phase, because that's what we want to go live with in the beginning of next year, between January and March. I've covered that one. So, colleagues, we want to keep it simple. We want to build a proof of concept and test it with the environment so that you're not landed with something that looks foreign or that you haven't had any input into. And of course, we'll have to develop change management training and approaches for rolling out. The competency framework is a big piece of work that we have to work on, and it basically says for each job or cluster of jobs, what are the competency requirements for that role? So that at the end of the day, we can link it to the development offerings on the table. And that was my last point, to actually link it. And what will come later is to build the reward component and that calibration process, so that when we get to that stage next year, that again is able to go live. Once again, we will be working very, very collaboratively and getting input as we collect data and as we shape the process. So, colleagues, what I want to, I guess at the end of the day, say, your performance management process stays as is for now, for 2024. The new path will kick off in the new year. We'll start with contracting and then later the review process in the year. It's not going to be a perfect, fancy system. It's going to be basic, simple, and it's going to be refined over time through collaboration with yourselves. So that is what we have. And I've put succession strategy there because I know it's a dire need. We've got to put all of these building blocks in place before we can even start to talk about career maps and succession. That one is just for your information. You can't see it, but it's really the standard template we are building. Colleagues, thank you so much. I'll hand over to Leslie. Thanks.
Memoriam, I must just say, I think our Sun Fin and Sun student colleagues really owe us coffee. I think we stand in difficult times, but we gladly do so, colleagues. I'll go through a couple of slides, Prof. Nika. I don't think we might be running out of time. I'll do a bit of an introduction of, colleagues, where we are in terms of the transformation policy processes, and then I really want to focus on the KPI and KPA processes to link on with Miriam. Thank you very much to all the committees, the statutory committees, but also the faculty committees, the past committees, interested colleagues, etc., who over the last almost a year have engaged with the transformation policy. Really quality feedback that is now integrated into what is the draft plan. Most of the faculties have recommended the policy, except for one faculty that we are engaging with this week still. And we hope that now the policy process can be completed. Just to remind colleagues perhaps that we have had a plan, a transformation plan at this university since 2017, post the FISMAS 4 era, and now we're of course developing into a policy process, and we're almost there. So we hope that by the end of this year, through all the statutory processes, the policy can be completed. There are environments you indicated that you would like to engage on the policy, the draft policy. Very welcome to do so. I would want to encourage all of us to specifically engage on the plan that will follow the policy completion process, and then of course on the KPA process that is to follow. But thank you again to all the colleagues for the engagements up to now. Then, colleagues, I really want to specifically focus on the KPIs that will form part of the plan process. As soon as we're done with the policy, we can start to finalize the plan, but we're in process to do that. Since 2020, 2021, after we started to come back to campus again, we started to develop what is now known as broad KPIs for transformation. And Miriam indicated that this is not something that Leslie decided this is what we now need to do. This is something that Council mandated to do, and we needed to start, give some flesh to this idea. And in the consultation process, we've come up with these 5 broad KPIs. And some of you, some of these KPIs will be well known to you, depending on your particular environment. And these are the broad KPIs, colleagues, that we will work with. Of course, as Miriam has indicated, all of these KPI processes must be embedded in our broader institutional processes, and each of them will be defined in the plan. So over the coming weeks, we will go back to the environments that have particular interest and focus on these sets of, on the KPIs, a particular KPI. Again, consult with you. We have been in consultation up to now, but we will go back, consult with you to try and redefine or fully define these KPIs, and then to start working towards the KPI process. And this is the parameters, colleagues, that we have for the KPI process for transformation. One, of course, it is a council decision. It is applicable to all staff. Miriam and I questioned that again. It was agreed that it is for all staff, not in a one-size-fits-all manner, a differentiated manner, with a particular focus, colleagues, in the environment that you're in, and I'll share something of that just now. It must add to or contribute to quantitative transformation, qualitative transformation, must enhance the nature of the university. It must allow you to be a partner on the university's journey of change, its transformation journey, and it must enable this university to be a much more welcoming, much more engaged university, of university community, and of course, therefore, colleagues, we know that our roles differ, and therefore the KPIs must differ as well. The values remain central. It must be embedded in the performance enhancement process, given the fact that it is linked to performance enhancement, colleagues, and of course, we will make sure, as is the case with the broader process, performance enhancement process of HR, we'll make sure that we have sets of libraries or baskets that you'll be able to choose from, to say that this, if it comes to transformation in my role, it means that I can involve myself in this and that. I already involve myself in this and that. I can add or change or think again about my particular role. And very importantly, colleagues, this framework must make sure that we understand transformation not as an add-on or as an addition, or that you have 100% of your role and now you need to add 20 to 25% of your role. It will ask for a change in how we think about our roles, how we do our roles, and then particularly then also how we enable the university's change processes. Perhaps on the way forward, colleagues, and this is where I'll end, Chair. I hope we can still have questions. The idea is that we will develop sets of libraries. We'll take the 5 overarching KPIs, engage with the particular environments linked to these KPIs, develop a set of baskets or libraries that will enable colleagues to fulfill or to choose from and or enact transformation in your role as part of your performance linked assessment. And this is an example that I've given of, for example, a colleague in the university library, a librarian. I saw Zoo walking in earlier. Zukanye Magwa is our manager for Marty's football. For Zoo, it might mean that the nature of who use Lentulus, how we engage with our local partners and communities, how welcoming Lentulus is, the nature of access to Lentulus for people also differently abled from me and you, perhaps colleagues, that most probably Zoo is in any case part of how I think and how you do, but now you can be celebrated and assessed based on that, and it can be formalized in your KPI. For colleagues in this particular building, teaching and research colleagues, it will have implications for, of course, who teaches, what we teach, the nature of our engagements, our assessments, and literally, colleagues, what is performed on stage here and who we invite as audiences into that. And that is where we are now. Those baskets are being developed, and I really hope for a good institutional engagements on some of these baskets and elements. And again, not one size fits all. It cannot be that. We have to differentiate. We will come with a proposed basket or set of baskets, but in the end, you are the experts in your particular roles. And it would be great if you can co-determine that. Colleagues, I think I'll end there. I hope that this will enable us to not only better define and understand who we want to be as a university, but that transformation can be celebrated and that you really, as the hands and feet of what we would like to see at the university when it comes to change, get acknowledged, Miriam, through our performance enhancement processes. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and thank you very much, Miriam, for introducing this important topic to us of performance advancement framework, and also in terms of the information it will have on transformation KPI and how it will affect or have an impact on each and all of us. I need to apologize that this took longer than what we thought, so we have a very limited period for questions and answers. But I do want to say that I want to encourage you to submit questions to the Ecom's email address, and we will certainly answer them and place the answers on the StaffNet on that web page. And also, after we've adjourned here, I'll certainly be available if there are questions that you need to ask me in person and or some of the other members of the rectorate. But if there are any pressing questions, maybe one or two, because I think you've all earned your box lunch. Pressing questions. There's one there. Wade. Can we get a microphone to Wade there, please?
Sorry, Bo. Wade has to wait. I'm up here. Look up. Farah. Sorry, Wade. I got the mic first. But further up, man.
Okay, I've got, okay. Yep, Farah.
Hi there. So when we spoke about the renewal of the university strategic plan and that it's coming to a close now, what I would like to see and what I would like the rectorate to think about is how we can link budget to strategy. Because at the moment we're not necessarily, or we don't operationally see or practically see how budget is flowing towards the strategic imperatives of the institution. And that is quite critical to not only put forward a strategic plan, but to ensure that the resources are available to operationalize it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Farah. And I think that's a very fair question. Also want to say that in Prof. Hester's RC, there's a project underway at the moment to actually assess what did we actually do in the goals that we had in the strategic plan, and what was actually achieved, what was really achieved, and how did the budget impact that? Speaking to your question, because that is very pertinent. So, for example, when I started off, we started an initiative, the Rector's Strategic Personnel Fund, because I recognized that the percentage of our academics who are BCIA are at 18% and we lag behind. So the Rector's Strategic Personnel Fund over the last number of years so that's recruitment, retaining, promoting, and advancing careers for our BCA staff, and it's both academic and support staff as well, has resulted in that percentage changing to almost 28-29%, and that's a very significant change. It's almost where UCT is at, so it's very significant change, especially considering the very low turnover employees that we have at this university, which is about 3% annually. So that's an example of where funding has an impact on strategy. But I think that is a very good question. Thank you, Farah. Wait, but last question.
I just think there's a lot of unhappiness and maybe unfairness, and we need a policy or guide that working from home policy, or so some people thrive, or some people are very unhappy about that. And that is, my concern is that it's up to the line manager to decide. So there's a lot of inconsistencies and it leads to that. So
That's such a lovely question. I'm going to give it to Prof. Koopman.
Wait, it's clear, colleague Wade, that the question deserves attention. We can just say we've learned from the COVID time that we cannot go back to prior to COVID. We need more flexibility. We have a good rationale for flexibility. So in HR, we're reflecting on that. But secondly, also, when you do flexibility, there are some crucial things that need to be taken into consideration. The nature of the job will establish whether physical presence is required and what level of physical presence. That's an important factor. And then on the other hand, we are aware that if the nature of some people's work is such that they need not travel every day of the week, there's a socio-economic impact. And that's where part of some unfairness does exist. So, Chair, we do look at this, but we just know that we cannot go to a uniform system. We need to use the advantages of flexibility and look at some unfairness matters and how that might be addressed.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, thank you. Box lunches, saam vorentoe. Voor together, sonkie si pambile. Thank you.